Hello and welcome to another edition of Steppin' Through the Spec. Today we're going to be talking about badging API. Now, what badging is you may have seen this typically on installed applications where down at the bottom of your screen, I'm on a Mac, but Windows has the same thing, where it might have an indicator on the down here on the icon showing like messages or just basically it's a number or sometimes it's just a dot that there's new information there. You see it all the time on mobile applications and things. And so sometimes also on tabs, you can see it up the top where it might be something on the tab. Now, historically, if we want to mess with the tab, the favicon up here, what you would do is you would adjust that dynamically with some code that updates that in the tab, and you can still do that. This badging API is supposed to make it simpler to do that and have it actually not on the tab, but on the icon itself. So if you think about a chat um, application or even maybe a turn-based game application where it's your turn, it's an indicator it's your turn, that sort of thing, or an email application, all that sort of good stuff. Now, when I read through this, there are some confusing things. At least it was confusing to me. Maybe you're going to find it easier. But there was some confusing things, not about the usage, because that's pretty straightforward, and I'll show you that in the code I built, but in the implementation within the browser interface. So if I jump down here, and this has the typical, like in others, there's examples and it goes through the concepts and things like that. But I want to jump down here to the browser compatibility. This is one of the few times where I've run into things that, at least for me, were confusing within the MDN docs. So like we're on, for example, on Chrome, I think we're on 120 was released in December of 23. I think we're on 121 now, maybe at the time of this recording, maybe 120. Either way, we're well ahead of the 81. And it says it's got partial support, but on Windows and Mac OS only. And the ones that have the full green support here show this asterisk. Let me just click on that. It says for installed web apps. So with like web workers and you're installing basically a PWA. So the if you go to this explainer and you open this up, this down here, this actually has some good documentation. My only concern with this is, according to this anyway, it hasn't been updated. I'm recording this in January of 2024. So if we are generous and go back a few months, it's not been updated for 4 years. So that's always concerning to me that something isn't updated. And so and my code that I'm going to show you, the reason I started looking into all this in more detail is I wasn't able to get mine to really work the way I was expecting it to work. And you'll see, excuse me, I still haven't gotten it to actually work. So actually I went to the Can I Use site to check it out. And this had more current information. If I go back here, this shows, 81 and 17. I knew we were ahead of that. So I went here to check on in these areas and see we've got 120, 121. Excuse me, gonna take a drink here. And uh, there's a couple notes in it attached to Safari where it says badging supported for web apps saved to the dock. So basically an installed like a PWA. And then on iOS, it's our supporting web apps saved to the home screen. Again, PWA like. So it's not implemented in Firefox at all, according to Can I Use and some of these other browsers and things. Now, so when I first read this, I thought, oh, okay, it works on Chrome. Now I have Chrome installed. I use Brave, is what you're looking at right now, which is built on Chromium. But as you can see, I have this icon down here at the bottom. That is a Chrome icon. I do have Chrome installed for testing purposes, but it's not, I don't use it a lot just because personal preference, basically. And there's also some online tools like if you test in a real browser, you can use some online tools. I use an online tool that I can test basically any application on any OS and all that stuff. And I haven't been really able to get this to work. And but one route I have not gone down was I wanted it to work in a regular web application, but not an installed saved web application. I just didn't want to deal with all that. I want these videos to be quick hitters, and I didn't want to go through all of that. So I started digging a little deeper, and I went to the actual W3C spec within and looked at the editor's draft as of last May for badging. And when I looked at this, one of the things that jumped right out at me is the abstract. This specification defines an API that allows installed web applications to set an application badge. So, what this tells me is I'm receiving some mixed messaging, but if this is what the spec says, then I'm thinking that it is only for installed applications. Now, again, I want these videos to be quick hitters, and this is already longer discussion on the spec than I wanted before getting into the actual code. So the code I'm going to show you will only work if you install it in a web application, but at least wanted to show you because it's actually pretty simple, pretty easy code to do the badging. So I could see if I'm building a installable web application, this will be something that I could take advantage of fairly easily with a little, just a little bit of overhead. So let me just go ahead and just jump into the code here and walk you through it. First, let me go to the HTML. All I did for the HTML is I just did a two buttons basically to show it. And so if I come back to here, it just is two buttons. So if you're going to do this and try this out, and you want to see it at work completely in an installed web application, you're going to have to do the whole installed web app part on your own. This is just the badging API. So apologies for that, but you can still do this. So I just have a button that sets and clears the badging. So if I look here at my the way I have it set up, first I'm checking to see if there's these two methods, basically set at badge and clear at badge, and I'm just checking to make sure they both exist. I probably could have done just one, but I'm just checking both. And then I'm getting a reference. I'm grabbing basically my two buttons and adding event listeners to both. Okay. So now before I jump into those, you see I do have, if it's not supported, it does a warning on the console. Hey, that's not supported. So first, the set badge button, I just have a click event where I'm saying, okay, I'm checking again if the setup badge is in there, just in case. And then I'm calling that method and I'm passing it a number. What that is supposed to do is it will put the number 5 in like a red, or I think it's red icon above the browser icon. Again, seems to me it only works in installed web apps, but you click that and it does that. So, for example, if you're doing this on a chat-based application and your users on the end of that chat-based application, but maybe they've gone to another tab or they've gone to another application, like I'm in VS Code, then let's say they've gotten a couple chats, you could pass that count to setup badge and it would show the number 2 here on the icon. And then I'm I put in these console logs. Basically, I did this because I didn't want to go through the install app, web app piece, and I just want to make sure this, if this setup badge fire had an error, it would jump to this catch, not do the then that it was updated successfully. So I just want to make sure that that was actually firing, even if I didn't see the results on my badge or on my app icon. And then I just have a else for a warning if it doesn't exist. And then I'm doing sort of the reverse in the clear app badge. So the clear app badge, you just don't send anything to it. That just cleans it right off. So again, in the case of chat, if you're using like a socket.io or something like that, and you're going through and that user goes and reads those, therefore they're no longer unread, then you can clear that app badge off of there, and it'll clear it completely out, and it'll go back to normal. So now, again, we're not going to be able to see this on the icons, but we are going to be able to see if they both of these methods work and don't throw an error anyway. Now that there's a clear distinction there, but if they don't throw an error, I'll see badge count cleared successfully when I click the cleared. I'll see badge count updated successfully when I click the set. So let's go ahead and jump over here. I'll move my mug out of the way. And if I click set badge count, there, badge count updated successfully, clear, badge count cleared successfully. So I do know that those methods are at least not throwing errors at this point. So I would encourage you to play with this. And if you're working with installed web applications, it could be a handy little feature as part of a notification for your end users. Note that if you go here and read this API explainer, there is an interesting they have a lot of detailed information, and I'm not saying it's not good information just because it's old. It's just I wasn't current as far as whether it was working with installed or non-installed web applications, in my judgment. But there is some good information in here that they go through and explain some things. One of the things that I would encourage you to take a look at is when they start talking about the push API and getting information from that and integrating that with the badge API with some service workers and stuff. So if service workers are keeping stuff up to date on the back, they get in conjunction with the push API and all that stuff. It just seemed like an interesting um, set of uh, context when working with the background sync API and things like that. Was pretty cool. So I would encourage you to still take a look at it, even though it's a little older. So if you have any questions, let me know, and happy stepping.